Hey everybody, welcome back. This is Real Life UnPlugged. I'm your girl Jae Hers, and today we are continuing our conversation. We had a discussion, mothers answering the call for help. Now this call may have been from a man who was dying, but it resonates all too well in different areas of our society where there are ailments. So today we continue the conversation as mothers answering the call. This is Real Life UnPlugged. I'm Jae Hers.
This is Real Life UnPlugged, and I'm Jae Hers. Come with me on this journey to find the way through the truth to the light.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Again, this is Real Life UnPlugged. I'm your girl, Jae Hers. We are continuing the conversation, Mama, the discussion with our panel. And I'm joined by my amazing panelists, Camille Evans, Emily Phillips, Adriana Speed. And as you may see, our wonderful friend, Jackie Zephyr has joined us. And I'll definitely go ahead and take the time to introduce Jackie. I do want us to get back, though, where we left off. Camille was going to answer the question. And the question posed is, how do we educate others in what the conversation is, or how to dialogue and just to be sensitive to the things that are happening in our communities? Camille, all yours.
Okay. I think it's just important to meet people where they are. I don't have to give you a whole history lesson about what it is to be an African American. I think it's important to answer the questions that they have right in front of you. In that particular situation, my colleague wanted to know how I felt about currently what was going on. So in that situation, I talked about currently how I felt and what it meant to be married to an African American male and to have two African American sons who are 13 and 11. So I didn't give a history lesson. I gave a current, present situation about what I'm dealing with right now emotionally. And so I think that's important. I don't have to give you all of that. I just have to meet you where you are. But I think it's important to understand and realize that I know what I'm about to enter into coming back to school. We start school tomorrow, and dealing with those issues that our students are going to have coming back, and just being ready to have those conversations if it's needed and just being available for that.
Wow. That is, that's good. That's good. I like how you tied that point of reference and made that personal. And you talked about dealing with something emotionally, and I'm going to actually get to that. But first, I did say I would introduce our other guest, our panelist, Miss Jackie Zephyr. Hey, Jackie.
Hi, everyone.
Jackie is, well, Jackie, go ahead and tell people about yourself. Introduce yourself to Real Life UnPlugged.
Okay, I'm a mom. And I'm a mom of 2 kids. I have a 9-year-old and a 6-year-old boy, 9-year-old daughter. Currently, I'm at home with the kids, but I just became a certified life coach, and I plan to get started as of September. But, for now, I'm going with the times of COVID and adjusting to now being at home, deciding, I still want to be an entrepreneur. I still want to work on my own business. However, I have children at home now. It's very, life is very real as far as how you're working, whether it's from home or, going into work or, balancing professional and home life. So for now, I am a life coach and a mom because it's just part of life.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Jackie, and welcome to Real Life UnPlugged. Out is that Jackie is also an advocate for empowerment of women and children, especially Black families. So that is another great cue in how this ties in again to us having the conversation. So Jackie, I've asked everyone, Mama, we started off initially, Adriana and I had the first episode, had this kind of segue to where we are now. When you heard that call in George Floyd in the moments of his last moments, he called out for his mom. Just kind of share with us a little bit what that was like for you, and what just that the experiences as we are with all that's happening in our country. Just give us a little bit of insight for us.
Okay. To be honest, it was very hard for me to watch the video, even to begin with. I've always been someone very involved in, activism, social causes for Black folks. And it even started for me very early on with the Black Lives Matter when it first started with Mike Brown. And it's crazy because for me, what motivated me to become a part of Black Lives Matter and we took a trip out to Ferguson, for Mike Brown, the vigil, the marches. But for me, it was actually the mom when she was crying out, there was a big, it was on the news, a recording of the mom just pleading out and just like, my son. And it really touched me to the point that I knew I had to go out there. I'm an empath, and I really, this is a real service for me to work with my community. And even if I was just going out there to, nurture the Black lives that were actually there and going through that trauma, and just all these people in their community now and marches. And I just wanted to be like part of the healing force. Moving forward, I realized very quickly that I'm not too good. Being an empath and being sensitive, it's difficult to be in the front lines of these things. So for me, it's been some time now of seeing Black men die at the hands of police. And so when that video came up, before it was Philandro, that was a hard one for me. That one just messed me all the way up, and I feel myself getting emotional. But when the video came out and I already had an idea of what the video was about, and I knew the cop's knee was on his neck and he was crying out, I couldn't watch more than about 10 seconds. And then slowly, I would watch a little bit more of it. But when I heard him crying out, I felt like it rang around the world. Just because every mother, that is a sound that any mother, I don't care what color you are, I don't care how old your son is, for someone to cry out to their mother like that, like, I don't even have words, really. You want me to give you some words? I really don't. I'm emotional, like, I feel it. And it makes me think about my husband. It makes me think about my son, my brothers, that, they're people. I know who they are. I know how loving they are. I know their spirit. I know their souls. But if they're out on the street and people don't know who they are and they could just do that, it just, your question was, how did it sit with me? I mean, how was it for me? It was just as traumatizing as the others. And just reminds me that we still have so much work to do. It's 2020, 2019. I mean, I lost track. It's just happening way too much.
Yeah. And I'm smiling because you're good. You're good. I love your honesty. Everyone has been very real in your emotions, and it's I will say I'm not filibustering. I'm restraining myself somewhat because I get emotionally charged. I'm a passionate person. And I want to allow our panelists the opportunity to really, again, I really want us to set the tone and have this dialogue. And Jackie, you kind of alluded to some things, and even when you gave your answer, Camilla, as far as how we educate, there's an emotion, right? There are emotions, a lot of emotions that come with it. And Emily, I actually want to ask this question because I feel like we, and correct me if I'm wrong, Adrienne, I feel like we had this conversation, we kind of touched on it, where sometimes in our communities, people of color, we have allies, and we don't necessarily know that we have allies. You talked about, not looking away, utilizing your voice. So I want you to share with me just kind of on the flip side. We know what these emotions are like. We know what we see. We know that experience. Like, I have a husband, I have a son. My son just started driving, and it was crazy because I cried. Not tears of joy.
Right.
I cried because there was a sense of fear that I pray and I trust God, and now I will stand on this. I trust God to keep him protected. But the conversation, like, we've shared, we've been having this conversation since he was no longer a cute little boy. And for him, because he's so tall, that was before he even became a teenager. And sadly, I have the same conversation with my beautiful girl because that's what people see. So can you just kind of, you're not the voice of every white person in America, and I don't want to put that on you, but I would love to. There's a different perspective that you bring, and I really want to be able for you to share that with us.
Okay, yeah. As far as, like, I guess you're talking like the emotion or like our emotional conversations happening, that kind of thing?
Yes.
So yeah, an example I can think of is my husband and I lead a small group, a community group in our home through our church once a week. And so that first week after George Floyd passing, we had group that Tuesday night, and currently our whole group is white. And so I was curious to see where the conversation was going to go, and was comforted, is an odd word to say, by the free, just the tears flowing, the shock, the anger in some cases over what's going on. And we do represent different sides of the political spectrum as well, because that makes a difference as well for, but there, it depends on, I guess, who you talk to. But within our community group, it was charged. It was charged. There were impassioned prayers going up and out. But I can easily see that conversation being totally different with maybe some of my family members, extended family members, that represent different generations. So yeah, there's a variety. There's a variety of conversation happening. And for the folks who are really have strong empathy, they go there. You see the fear and the upset that even if it's not an experience you might anticipate for yourself or for your own children, it's not hard to imagine what that must feel like, but also to not, approach it with arrogance, like, oh, well, I know exactly how you feel. I don't, but I'm trying.
I love you for it.
Yes.
Thank you, Emily. So, ladies, we've talked about the hard conversations, and I'm actually going to even address this because it is part of the conversation. I've heard people say, well, what about Black on Black crime? Which in and of itself, and Adriana touched on this somewhat, but I want to now address that because we need to have the conversation because it's real. As we're educating, as we're telling people to do research, as Adriana talked about sharing experiences. And Jackie, I think I want to hear you answer that too. So I'll double back to that. But as we're having the conversation, when someone says, well, what about Black on Black crime? What is the answer to that in the dialogue as we're helping everyone to really have these conversations to progress? Any of you ladies can take that.
Oh, I always say for me, what about white on white crime? The thing is that that's not publicized. It's always what our community is doing, right, wrong, or indifferent. We're always in the media in the spotlight, right, wrong, or indifferent. And so my thing is that I just hate the fact that that's being shown more than it being even across the board. So it appears that it's not white on white crime, right? It appears that it's just Black crime and then we getting killed by cops. And so I wish it was more of a equal narrative that was being presented to me in the media. That's just my take on it.
Mm-hmm. And I would agree with that. I'm like, again, it's like people are uncomfortable to hear about, police brutality and things of that nature. So they always have to kick it back. Well, what about this? And I'm like, okay, well, don't say that out of anger. Let's think about the whole picture. And, of course, anything will look bigger if you just take that part out. If we're just talking about Black on Black crime and then you have numbers, you can find numbers to back up, I feel like, whatever you want, with the internet these days. But of course, it's going to really look magnified if we're talking about that specifically by itself. Okay, well, let's break it up. Let's talk about everything. It's a whole storyline. And when you take a piece of the story out, I feel like it diminishes our cause of advocating for everything that's going on right now, police brutality and things like that. So just if I could kind of give advice on that, don't ever, don't bring that up in conversation. Because when I hear that, I feel like it just diminishes what I'm trying to say. I'm telling you, I feel emotional. I'm giving you my story. I am telling you my experience. And what you hear is me sort of pointing the finger at you. And then you just have to have a rebuttal. And then you're like, well, what about this? Okay, well, you missed the whole narrative. So, I don't feel like I have an official answer for you, Jae. I just am like, okay, well, that was the wrong thing to say. And then it just kind of spirals the conversation. But that's saying what about Black on Black crime is not an answer. It just kind of fits a narrative, and then it just takes the conversation away from what is really going on, what we're really trying to say.
Correct.
I agree, Adriana, and exactly what I was going to say. I usually say, what about Black on Black crime? Mm-hmm. We all know the population of white folks over Black folks. And it's true. If I watch my news, what is played daily and weekly is crime information in 3 neighborhoods that just so happen to be people of color, like Black people are the majority. But, surrounding areas, if you really dig deeper, there's just as much crime, drug activity going on. So it's really about what are you deciding to shine the light on. And then we also, and there's so many things against that. We already know with crimes happening in the Black community, we know the system and how when help isn't at its best, when education isn't at its best as it would be in other areas, you get, not to say that it's making more crime, but you do get crime. So, I don't even, it's playing the whole devil's advocate with, well, what about Black? I don't even entertain those conversations. Yep. And I don't even think in 2020 we should be anymore.
Okay.
If you don't mind me chiming in, I agree wholeheartedly with what about that? That whatever that statistic may be doesn't make what just happened right. Or okay. I mean, that period. And and it's such an adversarial question, that automatically puts whoever you're talking to in a defensive or maybe offensive frame of mind. And what does that accomplish for any of us? I mean, humility is such a key part of this, and not on, the part of the traumatized, but on all of us who are having these conversations. And if we're really trying to make things better, they're just that. They're conversations. They're not battles. They're not debates. There's definitely time for that. But I mean, why approach someone just randomly and go off on them? Like, what does that do for any of us?
Right.
It does nothing.
I like that. Wow. Thank you, ladies, because that is something, again, my goal, and why I'm appreciative is for us to, again, start the conversation. The dialogues are being had here in little pockets, but I think the frame of it can become really one-sided depending on, who's having the conversation. And sometimes we don't talk amongst ourselves as we should. So we have a few more minutes, and what I would love for us to do right now, I have a question, and Jackie, I said I was going to come back to you. I did ask, Emily shared about educating and really kind of learning, right? Excuse me, and I asked Camille and I asked Adriana, when you're having those hard conversations, what you do, or what's your framework so that we can help each other in the dialogue, if that makes sense.
It's a hard conversation. And when you say each other, do you mean amongst, Black folk, or amongst white folks and Black folks?
I think it's across the board, because sometimes it's hard to have the conversation Black to Black. There are some of us who, I've heard people who say, and I'm going to speak from some of, unfortunately, our communities, right? Some of the African community or the Jamaican community, sometimes we're all Black. And I tell people, when people see me and they see us, they don't know where our background is, right? So it's not just talking from Black and white, but just as a whole, because I think that the conversation, just having the conversation, because it can be hard, what that looks like, or what you can, what that looks like, what from you?
I've talked about it with a few friends and, even family members. Like, I have some, it really depends, I guess, who you're talking to. Like, I have some nieces, and they're in high school now. And, I felt like when I was younger, they were younger, I kind of traumatized them because I taught them, like, when they were 8, about Emmett Till. And, they were just, and, I told them the story a little bit. And then afterwards, like a few days later, they told me like they had bad dreams. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, were they too young to hear about that? But it's crazy because now, they're much older, 16. And it's like they're informed and they're having these dialogues with people, and they just don't understand why people don't understand that this has been happening for a very long time. And so when I talk to them, I'm energized, because they come up with these new ideas. They still have hope, they're ready to take on the baton, and carry forward. But sometimes when I talk to like my peers, we're just kind of like, of course, we're going to continue to do the work. Me personally, I love Black people, and I'm committed to service in my community, and Black people around the world. But sometimes I just try to come up with ways. I mean, to talk about this is difficult, but to be more loving towards each other, in ways that we can, heal and learn from these things, because it's so hard to think like, how am I going to stop police, right? How? I don't have the answers for that. And if I think about that, I'll go nowhere fast. But I think, how can we better love each other?
Exactly.
How can we be better with each other? How can we help heal each other so that, I don't know, we're coming out healthier? Like, this is all very traumatizing.
Yes.
So it's about listening, you know, when someone's talking about how they feel about this, to really stop, listen, and really give them that space to process that emotion. And ways of just being more attentive with anyone who wants to talk about it, or young kids or older folks. I think it looks differently for who you're talking to.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think the biggest thing is not being afraid to communicate.
Yeah, honestly.
Honestly. Yeah, because I think even still within my office, it's a variety of different races. And I say it's important, if we can't have a conversation, how do you expect you to have a conversation with any student that walks into this building,
right.
You know, or a parent or staff? You know, we have to be able to be open to have raw, honest conversation, because that's the only way that you're going to heal and get better.
Good. That's good. So, ladies, we're coming up on time. I have learned so much. 30 seconds. I have a question I'm going to ask, and I would like each of you to answer. To our future, what words will you give to them as we move forward?
Man, that's a tough one.
Hope.
Love.
Okay. I would say just keep going. You know, the people before you have gotten to a certain point, and we've, you know, struggled, but we've each moved the baton a little bit further. And so the next generation will take it where we can't necessarily take it, where we can't move it, but just keep going. If you don't, you know, you might not see the immediate effects of it, but your children, your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren will see it. So just keep pushing no matter how it looks right now.
Emily?
I would say, don't look away. Don't be afraid to shine your light in the dark corners.
Camille?
Be hopeful and continue to love.
Jackie?
Yeah, let that fire that this lights under you, don't let it make you angry. Let it inspire you to be creative with this, to be loving, to be healing. Don't let it take you where it could easily take you towards anger and depression. And it's easy to go in that direction.
Okay. Well, ladies, thank you again so much for joining me. It has been my extreme pleasure. I love that we started a conversation, and I'm going to close out tonight. To anyone who has watched this show, we are all image bearers of God. This is Real Life Unplugged. I'm Jae Hers. Until next time.